Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Supersonic Countdown. Now, I should say I was meaning to do this sooner this evening, but I was kind of in the middle of something. I'm not saying that this interrupted me. It's just I was too busy with something to do this sooner, so I'm doing it now. So don't worry, I haven't forgot. You know what? I thought about something recently. I think what I'm going to do is this episode, I'm going to talk about the beginning of the downfall leading into the next decade of Sonic, the 2010s, 2010 to 2017. But then I thought, you know what? How about what I'll do is this episode I will talk about the beginning of the downfall and the continued downfall. And then tomorrow I will talk about the future of the series and where I think it's headed. And then finally, Monday, the eve of the game's launch, I'm going to leave off this series with a bit of a heartfelt message. A bit of a heart to heart, I guess you could say. But with that being said, how about we start off with, well, like I was talking about, Sonic Heroes last night. So yeah, it's really late. It's like 11:25. So I apologize for any. Okay, that was allergies. I was gonna say, so I apologize for any potential yawning and all that stuff, and if I look tired, it's because I am, but trust me, I have my ways of fixing up my sleep schedule. I sleep on my own terms, but I always have a pretty good night's sleep. However, with how long the stream is going to be, I'm pretty sure my sleep schedule is going to be beyond fucked up. Anyway, so let's start out our little downfall with Sonic Heroes. Now, I will say Sonic Heroes wasn't a bad game. It was a great game. But even though it was technically a follow-up to SA2, it wasn't a sequel. It does take place after, though, but it's not a sequel to that game. It is its own game, but chronologically, in terms of the story, it does technically take place after SA2, which is fine, because, for one, Shadow was a popular character, so obviously seeing him again was, yeah. Yeah. So, with Sonic Heroes, it introduced team-based gameplay where you would have 4 teams of 3. You would have Team Sonic, self-explanatory, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles. Team Dork, which is Shadow, Rouge, and a new character named Omega. Team Rose, which included Amy, relatively newcomer Cream the Rabbit, who was also in the Advanced series, and Big the Cat, whose first appearance was SA1. Yeah, that was his first game. Finally, we have Team Chaotix, who made their officially second debut here after Sonic K. No. This is the problem with doing this late at night. Now, I have no problems with streaming late at night if I have to, but it usually correlates with something that I have to do beforehand, like I was mentioning earlier, I was doing something, so as much as I wanted to do the stream sooner, I was too busy to, do the stream. But here I am. Anyway, what I was going to say is the Team Chaotix, this is actually their second game they've ever appeared in. The first time was Knuckles Chaotix, not Sonic Chaotix. Although that was originally planned to be a Sonic game, but it was changed to be a Knuckles game. Take that, Ken Penders, you pendering fiend. But anyway, so, yeah. So you have 4 teams of 3. With Chaotix, I forgot to get into them, but it's Espio the Chameleon, Charmy the Bee, and Vector the Crocodile. But with each team, you would have different hero classes. So you had Sonic, of course, being the speed type, Tails being the flight type, and Knuckles being the power type because of him being able to punch stuff. And it's self-explanatory for the other teams with Shadow, Amy, and Espio being their speed types, Rouge, Cream, and Charmy being their flight types for those respective teams, and Omega, Big the Cat, and Vector the Crocodile being their respective power types for their teams. When you boil it down, it's 3 different gameplay styles all boiled up into one team-based game where you could use, for me, since I played on the GameCube version, it would be the Y or X buttons on the controller, and you would be able to switch characters. So, say 1 second you're playing as Sonic, but you want to play as Tails, and you'll swap over to Tails. Depending on which character you're currently controlling, they will have a different formation. For Sonic, they'll be lined up behind them, and I feel like this is more synonymous with how Sonic, because of him being fast, he's aerodynamic, so it's them basically getting a slipstream off of them to maintain that same speed. Knuckles, being a power type, he has his friends right beside him, because whenever he punches, his friends become his fists. Don't worry, it doesn't hurt the characters. It's just Sonic logic, but it's the cool kind of game logic. It's the logic that doesn't make sense, but you don't question it because it's so cool. But yeah. For Team Dark, it's the same thing with Omega. For Team Rose, Amy and Cream actually go on to big shoulders. And then for Team Chaotix, you're gonna laugh at this. Vector will have Espio and Charmy in his mouth, rolling like how the characters normally do that jumping animation. Like, it's also their rolling animation. They'll be rolling in his mouth, like, and so whenever he attacks, he like shoots them out of his mouth, like, but for Knuckles, it's like he'll be like, like he'll do punches. For Omega, he's like, he'll do like these swinging punches. And then for Big, he'll use his fishing rod to sort of bat his friends over at the enemies that are nearby. Then we have Flight type. So Flight type is unique in that the characters aren't already on the ground. Instead, the flying character is holding the 2 characters up in a sort of tower pattern. And this is across all the teams, so across Sonic, Dark, Rose, and Chaotix. What's unique about this is so that whenever you press and hold down the jump button, instead of jumping like normal, you start to ascend, and by letting go of the button, you'll start to descend. And it does have a stamina meter, and I believe that can be increased with, well, the, no, not that. Yeah, power core. So the power cores actually upgrade your character's abilities. Um, yeah, so it says here, for speed types, what each upgrade will do is they'll give them a better homing attack, a better rocket excel, which rocket excel is the replacement for the spin dash in this game. Um, and all characters will have that. I mean, all speed type characters. You have the kick, swinging hammer attack, and shuriken. The kick is on both Sonic and Shadow. The swinging hammer attack obviously would be for Amy, and the shuriken would be for Espio because he is a ninja. And of course, across all speed types, we have increased acceleration and top speed. Fly type, which is, yeah, this is what I mean. So you can see in the screenshot, you have these two different buttons you could press to switch between characters. I will say this criticism for the game. Why did they make the characters look like frickin' plastic? Because I remember as a kid, and I think I might have said this in an earlier stream, when I was little and I first saw Sonic, I remembered thinking that he was a robot. Because in Sonic 3D Blast, which I wasn't any good at that game, I was only able to play through the first zone of the game and a little bit into the second zone, but I utterly sucked at it. But whenever you did a spin dash in the game, you would see the smoke, but for me, I always interpreted it as sparks because it was flashing. And I was like, oh, cool, Sonic's a robot. He's not a robot. He's an anthropomorphic hedgehog. Not a robot. Now, there is Metal Sonic, which is a robot, but that's different. Spoiler alert, by the way, he is also in that game, in Heroes. Anyway, so Fly type will have Thunder Shoot by default, but by upgrading their powers, the power cores, they will have a better Thunder Shoot, and like I said earlier, it'll also allow them to fly up for longer. Power type is awesome. So power type, just by default, you already have the punches. But with each power core that you pick up, which you can only have 3 of them, and the good thing is you won't lose a power core or all of them if you get attacked. However, if you get defeated during a level, you know, like if you die during a level, or you like fall off the stage or anything like that, or even if you just go to another level, like to a new level, the power cores will be reset, but that's obviously for balancing reasons. But for power type, you have the wide power attack, which you can see right there in the image. So by default, with no power cores, you won't have a big AoE attack. You'll only be able to do just punches. But by just leveling up once, you'll have a basic AoE attack. For collecting 2, you'll have a medium AoE attack, which AoE means area of effect. And then finally, for having all 3 of them, you will have the best possible AoE attack. Now, another feature in Sonic Heroes was a sort of like final attack ability called Team Blast, which I'm trying to find. Oh, cool. Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. Anyway, so Team Blast, if you were playing on GameCube, what would end up happening was that, whenever you have this special gauge filled up at the top right of the screen, it would tell you that you press the Z button. And for me, as a kid, I would always use that any opportunity I could, because, I was a stupid little kid. I learned straight away that that's only recommended for big bosses or like those bigger enemies like the big dude right here. So because of that, yeah, nowadays I know, but anyway, so Team Blast was basically this special animation that would play when you press that button, and it was a really cool attack. So, Sonic would say, "Blast away!" And then, like, both him and Tails would be flung by Knuckles towards the enemies, and Sonic and Tails would be like in a, like, if you watched closely, the characters would be swirling around in different directions, and the overall pattern that they're drawing in a way would resemble that of a ball, which is ironic because, Sonic curls up into a ball when he's jumping and stuff, so. Also, that's not Falco Lombardi. I'm sorry. Anyway, so trying to remember. Yeah. For Team Dark, it would be Shadow holding a Chaos Emerald and saying Chaos Control, and Rouge would be holding on to Omega, and he would have these two laser cannons going like. And what's really cool about that one in particular is that, also sorry for the voice crack, it would cause all the enemies around you to be stopped in time, because, chaos control. For Team Rose, I don't know what their, special attack was. Yeah, so here's what I was talking about. So we have Sonic Overdrive, which is Sonic's special attack. Chaos Inferno, which is Shadow's special attack. dark special attack. Flower Festival is Team Rose's special attack. And I believe that would give you invulnerability after you were done. Yeah, here it is. So, because Team Rose is actually meant for newcomers to the series and younger players, because their levels are much shorter and they're much easier, ironically enough, that was actually the first team that I ever beat the game with, although I didn't even 100% anything, because I didn't know that you were supposed to get the frickin' Chaos Emeralds. What do you expect? I was a kid. Shut up. Anyway, so it gives you invulnerability, a barrier, and all three of the different power cores. Wait, no. It gives you just one of each, not all three of each. But because, again, this team is meant to be for newcomers, also, I can attest to this. I've heard her say that. Yeah, so then we have the last of the team attack things. Or, I'm sorry, team blasts. Chaotix Recital. So this literally just destroys all nearby enemies and gives it gives rings for each enemy destroyed. So theoretically what you could do with this is you can have like a whole bunch of robots, which yes, you fight robots in the game. And you could use the team blast, and with how many yeah. Yeah, so it says here, since the random ring items granted from destroying the enemies also refill the Team Blast gauge after it resets, it's possible to use the Team Blast again if enough rings were collected from the previous usage. So this is actually very useful for bosses like this one and this one, which are actually horde mode sort of things where you would fight off against hordes of machines. But what's also interesting, and I never picked up on this as a kid because, again, I was a little kid. I didn't even pay attention to this stuff. Actually, I didn't really pay much attention to anything because, a little kid. Espio, Charmy, and Vector all sing during the Chaotix Recital. However, their voices are cut off by the sound effects and each other, making it impossible to hear their lines. Below are what they say. Born in the darkness, to live in the darkness. That's the ninja's creed. Charmy sings, bee, 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 Charmy the bee. Charmy the bee's got lots of honey. And then Vector just sings, yeah, I'm the one. I'm Vector the crocodile. Her. In the Japanese version, however, Vector Man... No, not Vector Man. I want that series to come back, but the people that made the series are no longer around. I mean, the team, not the people. I'm pretty sure the people behind that team are still alive. Anyway, Vector sings, I am Vector the crocodile. Can you dig it? Yeah. So, that's all that. So, something I really like, however, is just how imaginative they were with the different locations you go to. So, working in tandem with the older Sonic games, like the old Genesis games, similar to those, you would have zone sort of locations. So, Seagate, which is a tutorial stage, is exclusively for Rose, although you can do a glitch to use the other teams there. Although I'm pretty certain, and I think I saw this in a video once, that Seagate was meant for everyone to go through without any sort of weird glitches or things like that. In fact, I'd even be inclined to think that maybe it was meant to be access should a player be brand new, having never played the game before. But I also like how they included it exclusively for the Rose team. Because the thing is, if you're a younger player, like someone who's new to Sonic or, or a little kid, Team Rose is the best way to go because they're easy to play. They're meant for younger kids who want to get into Sonic. So that's why they have that there, is because even if you're not a little kid and you're just brand new to the game, the developers would have liked you to go to Team Rose anyway because you want to learn how to play the game. So I actually kind of like how they did it, but at the same time, it would have been nice for them to do that regardless of which team you choose. If it's your first time playing as that respective team. Anyway, carrying on with the zone-inspired layout, we have 2 levels per zone. So we have Seaside Hill and Ocean Palace, which make up the beach, ocean-inspired locales such as, Emerald Coast and Metal Harbor. Grand Metropolis is a futuristic city, and as such, it's a city/futuristic environment. Casino Park and Bingo Highway are references to casinos and pinball and stuff. Not only that, but this is also likely a reference to Sega as a whole, because Sega, believe it or not, has done some casino stuff. I think. Then we have Rail Canyon, which is the run-of-the-mill canyon/desert inspired place, complete with, rails. And then we have the bane of my existence, Frog Forest and Lost Jungle. I remember as a kid, I could not get past this level as Team Sonic. Because at the very end of this level, there is a giant alligator that chases you. So you have to swing on these vines and make sure you jump at the apex of your jump. Like at the highest point of the jump where you're going straight forward. You have to keep doing this while seeing this alligator chomping towards you. As a kid, I just couldn't do it. I was too freaking petrified. Now, granted, as a little kid, that's a different story. Then we have Hang Castle, which, by the way, Frog Forest and Jungle, self-explanatory what that zone theme is. Hang Castle and Mystic Mansion. Those are both based on the typical haunted castle stuff. The spookiness. But then we have Egg Fleet and Final Fortress, which are themed after Eggman's fleet. I love that. What I don't like, however, is, for one, if you get hit while carrying the special stage key, you lose it. Not if you die, like falling off the level or something. If you get hit just once, that key is gone. Yeah. Something else is that, here's something I don't like. Say you're a brand new fan to the Sonic series, and someone who introduces you to the games wants you to start off with the older games first, to sort of ease you into the newer games as time progresses. Eventually you get around to this game. This is what I mean. The Emerald Challenge. I am so glad that the newer games don't have Chaos Emeralds as an incentive to complete the game. Because, like, granted, that's kind of a boring thing, because, the Emeralds are they're meant to be for the true ending. And, heck, Chaos Emeralds even make a return in Sonic Frontiers, which, therefore, is further evidence that this is meant to be a major reboot that the series needed. A much-needed reboot, I might add. But what I don't like is, again, say you're a new player and you start off with Team Rose because, they're the easiest, they're meant for newer players or younger players, or both. How are people supposed to know about that? Like, they may see the key in the cage and they're like, oh man, I wish there was some way to get that out of there. And then eventually they figure out they could break it with the power type character. And so they get the key, but one of those egg robots just hit you and you lost the key. That's one of the reasons why I don't like that. It's already a pain in the butt to try and get to the stage, considering the fact that you have to make sure that you're perfect with your gameplay. The other problem is doing all of these is required to get the final story. Think back to Sonic Adventures 1 and 2. The Chaos Emeralds were part of the story, meaning that you would naturally progress through the game without having to go through special stages, as the characters would get the Chaos Emeralds through the story rather than having to jump through all these different hoops. So the fact that they went back and decided, hey, you know what, we should reintroduce having to get Chaos Emeralds to get the final story. I don't like that. And again, as I explained earlier, partially because of the fact that not everyone has the time to go through that, not everyone has the patience to go through that, not everyone has the willpower to go through that. Now, the thing is, in Sonic Frontiers, yeah, you can collect the emeralds, but it's required on each island to get all of them in order to progress to the next island. At least from my own gatherings. But because of that, you don't have to worry about, going through all these different hoops, because the Chaos Emeralds themselves are locked behind these vaults that require keys. And the good thing about it is, as Takashi Iizuka has said, cyberspace levels are not required in any means to progress through the game's story. So you can still get the vault keys just by playing through the game normally. You don't have to focus on the cyberspace levels if you don't want to. But for the sake of my Let's Play, I'm going to go through as many as I can. I'm going to try and get 100%. And whenever I get the game and start the stream, I'm going to do something different to how I normally do my Let's Plays. Because you see, Sonic Frontiers has difficulty settings. You have easy, normal, and hard. You're probably wondering, okay, well, what's the big deal? From what I have heard from people on Twitter, people who have played the game because they have an early copy or might be a reviewer of it, is literally required to play through the game on hard mode in order to get the true ending. As such, this will be the very first time in Fur Play's history that I will be playing through a game on the hardest difficulty, or on hard mode. I expect to do that well, but at the same time, my reaction timing on stuff is pretty good, and as such, I'm feeling pretty confident because, here's the thing. I have a good feeling that my playthrough of the game is going to be not perfect, but good enough. I'll do my best to get everything in the game. And I will also say this. For one, yes, there will be bonus episodes, so stay tuned for that. Another thing to keep in mind is I will not, under any circumstances, show any spoilers. How I'm gonna approach this Let's Play is the day that the game comes out, I'll start playing through it on my own personal time, and then later that day in the evening, I'm gonna do the first episode of the Let's Play. And you might see a slight spoiler on the files, whoops, whenever I choose the file that I'm going to be using, which is obviously file 2, not 4, yeah, but other than that, I will not be showing any spoilers. I'm going to be streaming the game from the very beginning all the way to the very end. If you happen to be a new viewer who happens to see one of the streams out of order, I highly suggest that you go back to the very beginning of the series, whenever that starts, in order to understand what's going on, what I'm doing, and all that stuff. Otherwise, do not look for me for spoilers or anything like that, because I am doing my utmost best to make sure I don't spoil people. Because I want to be just as surprised by this game as everybody else. Now, you're probably wondering, well, wait, what about the bonus episodes? That's got to have spoilers and stuff, right? Well, yeah, but how I'm going to be approaching those is I'm going to wait a while after the game has been out, so that way people will have had the time to play through it, experience it on their own, and as such, many people will likely have played through the game and gotten the multiple endings to the game. Yes, multiple endings. That's why I said I'm playing through on hard mode. Is because there's actually a special final boss for doing that. Again, from what I've heard, I haven't seen it. I won't say it because I haven't seen it. But I will say this. SEGA worked extremely hard on this game. Sonic Team worked really hard on this game. The last time they have ever felt this confident in a Sonic game was way long ago. The fact that they are feeling extremely confident about this game tells me these few things. For one, they're not afraid to go back to the series' roots while still evolving it in a meaningful way. Number 2, they aren't afraid of bringing the characters back to their former characterization, with Sonic being his carefree self but still being heroic and caring about other people. Knuckles being his tough guy self but also being smart and stoic and being a general badass guardian of his own island. Tails being a genius inventor and will most likely be back to being his brave self. And of course, Eggman being Eggman. Not the Eggman that we got from Pontac and Graff. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is emeralds are pretty much required in Frontiers, but you don't have to worry about playing through one of these. Instead, you do get them through natural progression, through getting vault keys and stuff. And you can get vault keys either in the open zone areas or by completing cyberspace levels, either of which are both good ideas. Yeah. So I'm glad that while you do have to collect the emeralds in order to progress in Sonic Frontiers, they won't be tied to a special stage and the game won't give you a bad ending if you don't do it. Because you actually do need to get all the emeralds in order to progress the game. You can't just complete one island, go on to the next without collecting the emeralds. It's literally required. And I actually like that. Anyway, yeah, so that was Sonic Heroes. I talked y'all's ears off about it. But, yeah. So, Yeah, it is considered a mainline game. But Shadow the Hedgehog is not a mainline game. So we're not going to talk about that. But we are going to talk about the true beginning of the downfall of this series with what is widely regarded to be one of the worst video games of all time and the second worst Sonic game of all time. Why am I saying second worst? Because one game forced their way in. Yeah. Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. Otherwise known as Sonic 06, Sonic 2006, Sonic 15th Anniversary, Sonic 360, and Sonic Next Gen. Or as I'd like to call it, something that should have been not rushed. I'll explain. Also, it's midnight. Oh boy. So this game was made to celebrate the 15th anniversary. And, oh boy, it celebrated something alright. I mean, alongside the fact that it came out for the consoles that came out at that time. Hey, you think I'm kidding? No. I'm not joking. Both those consoles came out at around the same time as that game. In fact, that game literally came out on those consoles at roughly the same time period. It came out on Xbox first, and then PlayStation 3. But here's the thing. The reason why it came out so soon after those consoles came out was because of the fact that Sega's investors wanted the game to be out within the same time frame of those consoles. If it hadn't have been for that rush, if they had taken a little bit of time to delay the game, make sure that it was up and running, make sure that it was working, this entire game and the fiascos that followed it would not have happened. But on the plus side, we did have a few new things. For one, we had Silver the Hedgehog, an underrated character. We had Sega at one point trying bestiality. And you also had the fact that this game was the very game that put Sonic in a bad spot for many years to come. You think I'm kidding, huh? Granted, this game is 4 years away from being 20 years old, but I'll just say this. I'm glad that, at the very least, this game's ending reboots the timeline of this game's story to where Sonic and Elise never meet, and Eggman doesn't invade Elise's world. And you're probably wondering, well, wait, why is that a good thing? Yeah. So, Um, so here's a little lesson to any game developers out there. Don't rush your games. Take as much time as you need for your games. Because otherwise you're going to have one of these. You're going to have, yeah. I will admit, whenever I was a little kid and I first heard about this game, I saw brief glimpses of gameplay, but not much else. So I knew next to nothing about the game, and it wasn't until I was much older that I actually saw the gameplay of it. And at first I thought, oh man, this game looks cool. I was fucking stupid. Anyway, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so now that that's out of the way, how about we continue the game series' downfall? You're probably wondering, downfall? Well, wait, the next game's supposed to be good, right? Well, it was mostly okay, right? Mixed reviews. Now, granted, nowadays the game has seen better days because now that people have been able to play the game with much better technology like the Xbox Series X and S and emulation, well, yeah, the game has gotten much, much better, but yeah. Because of Sonic 06, this game's reputation was already tarnished. But to add on to the downfall, there was the clunky combat of the werehog, which granted, it's a werehog, it's a giant beastly hedgehog thing. Of course it's going to be slow and clunky. But I will say this, for those few faults, the game has several good things going for it. But one, at the same time, very bad thing that is not going for it. You're probably wondering, well, what's the bad thing? Let me first go on to the good things. The music in the game is nothing short of incredible, and to this day, I still occasionally listen to Endless Possibilities because it perfectly personifies Sonic. But the game introduced the boost format. Make of that what you will, but all I'll say is the boost format is what ultimately ruined Sonic, alongside what we're about to get into in a few minutes. Basically, what I'm saying is, while Unleashed nowadays is seen as a great game, in fact, one of the best Sonic games in terms of the story and the presentation and everything, some of the other things were not so great. Except for the music and, of course, the first introduction to the boost gameplay, but at the same time, well... Yeah, so here's a fun fact. This game was nearly going to be SA3. It was not. But This is also the second to last game to feature all of the four, four kids entertainment voice cast except for Mike Pollock. A great guy, by the way. Also, give us a PC port, you cowards. Oh, I love this idea. So, this was planned. I just found out about this too, but this looks cool. Lenticular printing. If you don't know what lenticular printing is, have you ever seen those image looking things where you'll move the picture on one side and then the other, and depending on what angle you look at it, it changes? That's exactly what that is. Wait, what? I didn't know the PS3. Ugh. Although you can technically play Sonic Unleashed on PC if you have an emulator. That's what I was getting at earlier. I had no idea the PS3 edition actually did have better frame rates. But that's the other problem with this game. Alongside the Werehog combat and the introduction of the boost formula, which, granted, the boost formula at the time was great because it introduced a new mechanic to Sonic. But unbeknownst to the people at the time, that would be a remaining aspect of the series for many years to come. Heck, it's even in Sonic Frontiers, but, well, we'll get to that eventually. But yeah, so the game's performance was not that great. And when you consider the fact that it was on PS2, Wii, PS3, and 360, yeah. Now, luckily, because of the Xbox Series X and S, you can actually play the game with a 60 FPS frame rate without the annoying performance hitches. Yeah. Yeah, so, here's a fun fact. I said that this was the introduction to Boost. What I didn't say was it's the introduction to the 3D games to do Boost. So we have Sonic Rush and Sonic Rush Adventure. Now, granted, the Rush games had spin dashing as well. It's just that the boost is meant to be more like plow through enemies without having to sacrifice momentum after a short period of time. Because spin dashing can only take you so far unless you're going down a long hill. Sonic and the Secret Rings, I had that game. I sucked ass at it, and it wasn't really that great anyway. And this game. Oh yeah, it's because of the combo. Here's a fun fact. Yep, this console, Sega still remembers, baby. Anyway, Anyway, so now that we're done talking about Unleashed, you remember how I said that this game was the game that introduced boosting to the 3D series of games? Well, like I said, it would remain a thing. Now, we also have Sonic 4 Episode 1. All you need to know is it was a side-scrolling game made by Dimps, and it doesn't have the same kind of momentum physics as the Gen games. Also, the music isn't really that great. But then we have... Oh... Colors. Make no mistake, I have Sonic Colors for the Ultimate version. But... this is where problems truly started. For you see, this game was written by Pontac and Graff. I kid you not. I kid you not. These two idiots right here, Ken Pontac and Warren Graff. Now, granted, the one time where they actually made a good game, like in terms of writing, was Team Sonic Racing. Because I liked the game. Plus, it wasn't a mainline game, it was a spin-off game, and their writing was somewhat passable. But here's the problem. So here's a fun fact about these guys. Mad World and Happy Tree Friends. Now here's the problem with that. This is what Mad World is. It is a ultra-violent, slaughtery game. And... yeah. So, if we have a game with mature content, then I have a question. Why the hell can those two people not make a serious story and, write the characters to be how they used to be? Because I kid you not, they made Sonic out to be a quip-spitting blue annoyance. They made Tails out to be a cowardly little fox boy. They made Eggman to be a genius, although he was a weirdo sometimes. I'm kidding. Eggman was mostly the same as he used to be. These two were okay because they're comic relief anyway. Also, fun fact. Yeah, that's right. Orbot may or may not be a reference to Vector Man. Which is pretty funny when you think about it. Wait. Oh. Oh yeah. So I just figured out something. So I have technically seen the very opening cutscene of the game. You know, Frontiers. I wasn't spoiled though because I've already seen it once before. And that was just from someone who snuck some footage from a gaming event. Orbot and Qbot are not in the game. At least to my knowledge. They could very well still be in the game. But if they are, I hope they aren't some weird goofballs. But, yeah. Also, this game, for one, it continued the boost formula into the 3D era. It introduced these gooey little dough balls. And the less said about them, the better. But yeah, so Sonic Colors sure got them colors. They returned in Generations, albeit in one level, in Lost World, Forces, to some extent because of the Wispin, which are actually weapons that your character uses that are based on the Wisps. So they aren't actual Wisps. But, they do technically appear in the game. Because, actually, they do appear in Sonic Forces. What am I saying? Yeah, in other words, these little alien doodads. Oh my god. I'm so glad that Sega has abandoned these things. Because they should have only stayed in that one game. Yeah, so, in other words, Sonic Colors was a game. It existed. And, let's move on. Let's move on. Yeah. Generations. Well, it's actually pretty good. I haven't beaten it, but it is pretty good. But you notice the problem? This is good. I don't like this. I'm not saying I hate classic Sonic. What I'm saying, however, is that I hate how he's portrayed. So, what I mean by this is that they literally said in this game that Sonic, the little one, is a younger Sonic. Yeah, that's right. So there's no need to call him Classic Sonic. Just say younger Sonic, or just Kid Sonic, or something like that. Or Child Sonic, or whatever you want to call him. Calling him Classic Sonic, I get that it's just basic terminology, but it just irks me. The reason being is because this ain't the first time this ain't gonna be the last time we're gonna see this little dude. But, yeah. So, Classic Sonic. For the most part, they replicated how he performed in the Genesis games. But I bet you're wondering what exactly this game did wrong. Well, let's just say that this game did something that many people didn't like. So, bet you're wondering what that is, huh? Well, at least IGN seemed to like it. And what about... Yeah. See, this game was good, but here's the problem. You ready? This is the problem. You're probably wondering why exactly I'm so upset about Classic Sonic being a thing. It's not that I don't like him. It's the fact that they had to reuse him in Forces. That's right. I'm not kidding. We will get to Forces in this stream. I know the stream is taking a while. But Classic Sonic should have stayed in Generations. You know why? Because as it says right here, it's basically a past version of his modern counterpart from his younger days. He is literally a young version of himself. He is the past version of our current Sonic. And as such, calling him Classic Sonic doesn't make much sense. The other reason why I don't like this at all is because they retconned that lore. In Generations, it was explicitly stated that he was from the past. And seeing as how the game has an enemy called the Time Eater, time, and you're reliving Sonic's past memories, it makes a whole lot of sense that, Time Eater, you're reliving Sonic's memories. Hey, just like in Frontiers. But, yeah. So, but something I do like, they at least made classic Sonic stay true to himself. He still acts like how he did in the old games, where he's still, kind, but he wasn't afraid to be serious. But because of the writing that Pontac and Goofball did, I know his graph, shut up. They made modern Sonic, otherwise just known as present day Sonic, out to be I don't know. Yeah, so anyway, I think you could tell straight away why I don't like this. Because there's nothing wrong with classic Sonic. It's how they used him. And the whole naming scheme of just, it's classic Sonic. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. That wasn't a fart, that was just me moving in the seat. But yeah, so you're probably wondering, so where do we go from here? This game was actually pretty good, wasn't it? Say hello to a game that literally didn't even need to exist. This game should have never, ever existed. For one, technically it's on 2 platforms, Wii U and PC. Oh, and 3DS. But one of the reasons why this game didn't need to exist, well, you're about to see it. If this fucking thing will load. See those guys? Say hello to this. The Deadly Six, I think. Real imaginative. Real cool. One of them, however, makes a recurring appearance, and that would be this big red dude. By the way, did you know that, yeah, they have fucking demons in Sonic. You don't see that in any Doom games now, do you? But, you wanna know the problem? He comes back. He is in Sonic Lost World for both platforms. He makes an appearance in those games. He's in Sonic Runners, he's in Sonic Lost World, he's everywhere. And he is in TSR. Granted, that's a spin-off game, so of course he's gonna appear there. But, I hope you're ready for the final game in this saga of downfalls. Oh, by the way, that actually isn't the last game. We have 2 more games left. Sonic Mania. This is great. However, there's a big problem. I want you to read this. The storyline of this game also ties into Sonic Forces. Did you hear that right? This game ties into Sonic Forces. I think I made my point. So for one, this game is great. It brings Sonic back to its roots. It was made by fans, but they were contracted by SEGA to make the game. But, again, here's the problem. Ready? You ready? This game ties into Sonic Forces. What Sonic Forces? You're going to find out very shortly. But... yeah. Um... You want to know how this game ties into Sonic Forces? Well, good, because we're going to hear about it anyway. Hold on. Let me scroll back up. So, you ready to see the worst Sonic game of all time? And it's not bad because it's unplayable, because it's perfectly playable. It's the worst Sonic game because it let so many of us down, because we were hoping it would be a return to form. We were hoping it would have the gritty, sort of serious story like the older games, like Adventure was. But, well, you can tell straight from the box art that that's not the case. Let's see, we have Knuckles trying to be his serious self. Tails, Sonic, help me! This is not to knock Colleen. She was just doing her job. This is just knocking the writers. How dare you write Tails to be a coward? In the old Sonic games, he was not afraid to tackle problems. So I hope that in Frontiers, they do him justice. Oh yeah, and then you have you. That's right. You got to make your very own Dream OC. Better not be into inflation or else I'm going to rip your ass a new one. Let's see. Trying to be imposing is actually an illusion. And this guy fucking dies. Yeah, I'm not even joking. This guy right here. Infinite. Do you want to hear an edgy tryhard?
That day, I gave up my own unsightly face. And I let go of the old me. The one that was so weak, so that I could become stronger. And then, at last, I obtained the power. The power to make all yield to my will. I was reborn!
I will admit, the voice actor did a perfectly fine job. There is nothing wrong with the voice acting. It's the characterization. But not only that, but like I said, Yeah. Oh. Yeah, so here's a fun fact. Technically, Ian Flynn has written for um, Infinite, but only for a digital comic. However, Infinite himself is not to appear in the IDW comics. But, so, that was it. That was Sonic Forces. Right? Well, let's see. There's 30 levels, but each level can loosely be described as rush through them and you'll get through it in about a minute. Meaning that on average, because of the fact that there's 30 levels, you will spend 3 hours just playing through this level, or playing through this game. And now, granted, there's also the extra levels and stuff, but would you really want to play more than this? No. Because this game is literally just not good. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not good. And let me explain what I mean. It's not a glitchy, broken mess, and that's okay. That's not what makes it a terrible game. What makes it terrible is, for one, SEGA didn't even have the confidence in this game. Number two, classic Sonic exists in this game because, like I said earlier, Mania is a tie-in to Forces. Let's see. Yeah. They tried to make this game a return to form. It was not a return to form. But I will say this, there's one good thing about this game. And you're really going to love to hear this. Yeah, 69. But yeah, as it says here, all this game did was just repeat the same gameplay we're used to. Now, granted, we also had the avatar, but again, the avatar is literally just Sonic, but without the boost. Because in place of the boost, you have the Wispin. But, yeah. So, where does this lead us? Well, I'll just say this. I kid you not, when I started doing reviews for games, which was literally right around that same time, I kid you not, as a joke, plus because of the fact that, I hadn't played too many Sonic games at that time, and I was just getting back into Sonic, I gave it a 10 out of 10. I wasn't actually serious about that because nowadays I recognize that as a joke. But back then I was actually quite serious about that because I actually thought that the game was good. It was after a while that I started to realize just how bad the game was. The story tried to be this edgy, serious story, and it just fell flat on its face. It didn't advance the series at all. It was the same linearity across 3 different kinds of protagonists, technically 4 if you count Shadow. It did have something going for it. It did lay the foundation for Frontiers and how you could customize Sonic, but that's about it. And on the subject of Frontiers, where are we now? We're reaching far across these new frontiers. That's right. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. This game isn't a sequel. At all. Story-wise, it is not related to any of the meta era. It is its own story, and it is a brand new generation of Sonic. And personally, I'm excited about that because this is a brand new start that we've been needing. Now, this game still does have boost, but it's not the same kind of boost that you're used to. There's 2 different kinds of boosts in this game. There's the normal boost, which just moves Sonic at a much faster pace, and then we have the power boost. Now, it's important to note that both of those offer no offensive capabilities, and they're just there for traversal's sake. But what I can say about this game is, first of all, holy shit, I can actually run this game on my PC? What? That's crazy. I'm not even joking. I could literally buy this game on Steam, pre-order it, and I'll be able to play it. It won't look very pretty, even though, I have a GTX 1050, but that's about all I have going for it. But what I will say, however, is this game is going to be awesome. I kid you not. I'm not joking around when I say this, but this game is going to be most likely the best Sonic game of all time. Beating out the adventure games, beating out Unleashed, because Unleashed, it had a great story. Yeah, so but anyway, yeah, so with that being said, now that we've discussed the downfall of the series and the upcoming uprising, I can happily say this. So, it is technically Sunday right now, but episode 6 will be tomorrow night. And it's where I'll be talking about my own personal experience with Sonic, in terms of the series. And you're probably wondering, well, wait, what about Monday? I thought you were going to stream every single day until the game comes out. I'm not doing that. It's not because of burnout, because, truth be told, I'm not even feeling any burnout from this at all. I mean, I am tired, but that's more so because it's so late. But what I will say is, doing this series and talking about the stuff I know about Sonic and the stuff I've learned, the stuff I've seen and experienced, that's what this series was meant to be about. It wasn't about, talking everything about Sonic, because that would take way too long. So, I'd like to dedicate the 6th and final episode to my own personal experience with Sonic and how it changed me as a person. So, yeah, join me here Sunday evening for one last episode of Super Sonic Countdown. And then join me Tuesday for a new frontier. That being said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow night. Good night, and I'll